We're going to get started with our next fireside chat, though. We've got Nicole Williams from TelevisaUnivision, and she's going to be talking to me about building the platforms behind the buzz, the speed, the chaos, and the path to profitability. We're going to chat for the next 25 to 30 minutes, and then we're going to roll right into the next session after this, so you don't get to go very far. So give Nicole a round of applause, and I'll join her over there.
Testing.
Hi, Nicole.
Hello.
So thanks for joining us today. I know we're going to talk a lot about what you're doing at Univision, but let's start a little bit in your background and talk about some of the early risks you've done. I think you started at MySpace, and there was a note I had about your initial offer coming in on a Post-it note, not exactly the corporate onboarding you would plan for. But what made you sort of take the leap, and how did the startup days sort of drive the instincts that you've honed over the years?
Yeah. So I wish I had saved it, because everyone thinks it's a joke.
It would be a good eBay moment.
It would be really good. So I was actually kind of handed the job by the person who had the job before.
Okay.
And she had been a project coordinator, and it was a better job than the one I had.
So you're kind of voluntold.
Kind of voluntold. Knew that I wanted to break into tech, and I think I would give that advice to anyone looking to get started who maybe doesn't have like a CS degree or isn't coming in like the traditional way. Just take a job. Mm-hmm. It gets your foot in the door. That's where I got to learn sort of about, I feel, development culture. I got to get a feel for sort of how to build relationships, how projects were. And I was so low on the totem pole and like non-threatening that people were very, very generous, right? With information, with walking me through things. Whenever a senior PM didn't want to take notes in a meeting, I got to go to the meeting and join that working group. So I had exposure to a lot of sort of different projects along the way. And I think I took all of that in like a sponge.
Right. So it was about just being in the room at the right moment, and then being willing to do something the others weren't necessarily.
Yeah, like order the pizza.
It's amazing how much tech runs off pizza.
A lot. But it was actually through a connection that I made there that I made the pivot to Edgecast when they were really small. I was in the 70s in terms of employees.
So let's talk about a little bit of that, because obviously Edgecast grew into being the Verizon Digital Media Services Group. Being sort of in those sort of infrastructure trenches, I would imagine that there was a lot of learnings in the broadcast side. What did the sort of the Edgecast years teach you around scale and reliability and really the process of infrastructure in creative work?
Yeah. It was such a 24/7 environment. And that cadence sort of internalized in me early, right? The application must always run. And it's funny because that was like the age of move fast and break things, right? We had a meme, I think it's still on my phone, of our CEO saying, "Why are you breaking my shit?" I think he knows that. He might know it now. But so, because we were a utility, we had to be up 24/7. We couldn't go down. It's not the same as like the publisher side, right? I can have a small outage at VIX and maybe no one will notice if it's not a really hot piece of content, right?
But in the live world, they're going to know.
In the live world, they definitely know, and they definitely care. And I think that broadcast mentality, that operator mentality just became really important to me. I was just on a call Sunday night. We have La Casa de los Famosos. It's like Mexican Big Brother. It's really big, and we do live voting, and we supervise that. And I had to tell myself, like, hey, chill out. Take a step back. Let the real live ops team run the live operation, right? Because everything sort of came back all at once.
Right. So you also had time at Pluto, where you were working on a variety of other infrastructure problems. But how do you build sort of without breaking trust across it? There's a lot of chaos that you were talking about in that moment. So how do you keep coming back to an area where you're building trust both within the team and then ultimately for the viewers and the customers who are relying on the service?
Yeah, so Pluto was sort of for a while on the bleeding edge of fast, right? And I started there right after they got acquired by Viacom. And we had this huge need to sort of scale quickly. The only thing limiting our growth was really our ability to ship products. And so we grew the team to like 1,200 engineers and testers.
Over what period of time?
Just 2 years.
Wow.
It got to the point where we weren't hiring people, we were hiring entire teams of contractors.
Right.
And if someone couldn't staff a whole team, it wasn't really worth their time or our time to get into it. But, we were able to elevate a lot of the employees who were there at the beginning into lead positions where like we might give them an entire team of contractors, and now we've force multiplied sort of that developer, right? I think for me, it was just, I had to learn to challenge my conceptions of what I thought was possible when it comes to scaling and when it comes to growing. And it took us a while to like get into the rhythm once everybody was there.
Right. You're inventing a playbook that you're writing in real time.
Exactly.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about VIX. It got notoriety for reaching profitability faster than anyone really expected. What were the practical calls across either product or team or cost discipline that ultimately made something like that possible?
Yeah, it's a great team. It was a great team that built out the application. A lot of industry veterans. Some people might be out there today. The platform is very extensible and sort of a pleasure to work on, in the sense that everything is driven by the CMS, everything is driven by configurations. What really, I think, drove us was the fact that we had to be profitable. When you work in a company...
You didn't have a choice.
Yeah, when you work in a company that has a broadcast business that's declining, there's a lot of pressure on the streaming arm to grow, and it was always really important to us and our CEO from the very beginning that we were going to grow and we were going to reach profitability very quickly. One of the things that we had to do was, you need a lot of people to build a streaming service, but you don't need as many people to operate it after it's been built. So again, we used a lot of partners who sort of helped us scale and get to where we are, built that framework and that platform, and now we just have to innovate sort of new features on top of it.
What drove the partner relationships there? I'm always curious about that, particularly given that Univision has LATAM is a very wide market, but it's also sort of a known entity, and it has different vendors in some cases than other places. So how did you approach getting that partner ecosystem activated?
Yeah, I think it's great to have a global partner so that you can take advantage of some people here in the States. And then obviously the cost of labor in places like Colombia is a lot less expensive. We've got like 50 engineers in Colombia right now in an office in Bogota. It's really useful for us, just not on an economical side, but because these people understand the language, the culture, they're immersed in it, right? VIX really means something in Latin America. We have a big tech hub also in Mexico City. A lot of the vendor relationships were just people that I've known, that I've worked with, right? That have done good work for me, for a peer. And that was sort of how they brought people in to get started.
It also sounds like that even within a big company, VIX stayed in that sort of startup mentality that you grew out of, and is that true? Like, I guess what was the through line between the startup scrappiness and running an operation at scale at some place like Univision?
It's almost remarkable how similar it actually is inside of, like you said, even a large company. We wear many hats. We move quickly, but we move with intention and purpose because we can't stand to sort of lose anything. But You know, I'm not going to lie, it's hard. Like, it's hard work. It's not for everybody to be able to spread yourself across so many different disciplines or projects sort of all at once.
Do you find yourself having to second guess yourself continually in that environment, or do you try and stick the course to see out the pieces? Are you having to sort of readapt on the fly quickly?
I think, and this comes from a startup culture, there's no time to second guess yourself. You've got to, sometimes I say to my team, we've got to dance with the one we came with, right? We've got to see this through with adjustments.
Yeah.
I think reflection
Course
points and
corrections.
course corrections, right? But not like an entire strategy overhaul mid-feature.
Right. So I wanted to ask a little bit about you're in an interesting position being a woman in this industry, which we never seem to have enough of. And I believe you were also told at some point you were both too young and too female to be respected. I definitely want to hear about that. How did these kinds of moments shape you into the leader you've become? And what are you telling women that are entering this business in particular?
Yeah, moments like that suck. You can't really respond. Anything that you say in the moment is just going to dig you into a hole or ruin that relationship. And it was someone who was trying to give me sort of friendly, welcome to the company advice.
Are those kind of the worst in a way because they think they're helping you?
Yeah, a little bit. It's like, oh, wow, way to undercut my confidence before day one.
Right.
And it's difficult and it hurts to have something about who you are that you can't change be something that holds you back. I do have to say, I think it's gotten better. And I think that there were a lot of sort of hard-won gains, right, and equality, and to the point where like overt sexism is not tolerated in a tech company anymore. And that wasn't the case when I started. 100% it was not. So now someone has to be pretty blatant, right, for it to sort of, for me to clock it. Sometimes I have a yoga shirt at home that says, "Carry yourself with the confidence of a mediocre man." No offense to anybody. And that's sort of that's like an internal mantra sometimes, right? In those moments, like that's how you regroup from that moment.
Right. Amazing. I mean, what is the relationship like? How do you continue working with a person like that in that area? Do you just like, do you have to sort of show them they're wrong by continuing to show up and do the things? There's not a way, as you pointed out, there's no way you can correct in the moment. It almost has to be a, show by do.
Yeah, it's a real like unwinnable Kobayashi Maru situation. You have to persist. You have to recognize that most people who would say something like that are people on a journey, right? They're not going to get any better if you sort of completely box them out. So yeah, sometimes you just have to, we used to call it at Edgecast, hate-driven development or spite-driven development, right? This is just on the sort of personal level.
I made it through an entire keynote this morning without saying AI once, but I thought I would bring it in here, so apologies.
No, it's okay.
For bringing AI into it. You've talked particularly about how program managers will be coexisting with the automation around AI. So I just wanted to know sort of what is your opinion and where are you feeling like you want to use automation versus human, and what does that balance look like between the two? What's the symbiosis?
Yeah, and that's a question on sort of everybody's minds, right? For me, AI is good at the beginning of a process when you're trying to maybe generate a list of ideas, 90 of which are going to be garbage anyway. You might as well have a robot do it for you. When it comes to sort of, a lot of program managers used to spend a lot of time moving data from place to place. That's going away. So people are more efficient now. But the human element comes into sort of that final solution, that nuanced new idea, because all that AI can do is train on ideas and data that already exists.
Well, and it usually is trying to get to the middle, because it's literally trying to not offend
Right.
a group with it. So it's the most generic version of a thing, and the people usually bring back that spark, whatever the creative piece is that the machine can't account for.
Yeah. I mean, rote tasks. My product team is using it for a lot of user stories, right? To take a beautiful concept doc full of ideas and turn it into those 100 or 200 as a user, so that, blah, blah, blah. These are my tests. These are my negative tests.
I would almost go back and be a product manager again if I didn't have to write user stories.
Yeah, you don't have to write it. Gone. These are the times we live in.
What a time to be alive. What are some of the guiding principles across these different companies that have stayed true for you, and what advice could you go back and offer yourself back in those MySpace days on the other side of the journey? Like, what do you want others to know about it, and what do you wish you could tell yourself?
Yeah, well, I think first off, and I say this to people a lot, and unfortunately I usually say it to them when they're quitting or when they're telling me that they've quit. But I sort of let them know, this relationship between us transcends this job.
Right.
And I do try to treat people fairly. I do try to respect their humanity, right? I try to not be a dick so that when we run into each other again, we meet as friends. And I think this room is kind of very, very illustrative of that point. LA is a big city, but it's a small town.
Sure.
Entertainment's always been a small town. Media is not that big of a space.
Right.
You're gonna see that person again. So the professional conflict, the way that you might be pitted against each other, the difference of opinion, I think you have to just conduct yourself with integrity about it. There's a code.
Yeah, I've always found I try to remind people that, particularly when I worked at Microsoft, there were people that I'd hear people at AWS like, "Oh, don't talk to Andy. He's at Microsoft," and it was like, we're not competitors. Right. Microsoft and Amazon might be competitors, but we work in the same business, and we care and understand a lot more about each other and what we're doing than what our boss's boss knows what we're doing.
Right. Our families are at war, but we are in love.
Yeah, exactly. And to your point, we're going to change business cards every couple of years at some stage. And so you never know who's going to end up being that helpful benefit.
Yeah.
And you might end up working with someone that was a sworn enemy just a few short years before.
Yeah, and it's strange sometimes how that sworn enemy with time can become almost a best friend, right? You've been through the trenches together.
Right, absolutely. And they just know. There are people that I meet at these conferences and that I only see at conferences, but we know each other's life stories and we know our families and all the other pieces. Where is sort of VIX and Univision going? What should we expect to know about the next year as things come together for you and you continue sort of expanding and evolving and maturing the platform?
Yeah, so like most streamers, we're very focused on our short form strategy this year. We've been really focused. We launched what I wanted to call novelitas, but we decided on micros, these micro dramas.
Sure.
And they lean very heavily into Televisa's
Are
wheelhouse.
they as big? I mean, they're big in Asia. Are they as big in LATAM as well?
They're getting there.
Yeah.
It's sort of very early people who are producing them natively in Spanish. But Televisa films novellas on their sound stages and their backlot in Mexico City all day, every day. They have an acting school. So they've been able to produce with a lot of speed a good amount of content. And we're going to keep rolling it out through the end of this year, through next year, and sort of try and win over that maybe slightly younger, slightly more mobile, hipper demographic.
Right.
And then we've got World Cup.
Right.
And I'm very excited. I've done almost every World Cup since, I don't know, the 20-teens, maybe even before. So I get very excited around World Cup and when we're pressure testing and load testing the network, and then we'll roll out some cool new sort of sports features as well to make it a more interactive viewing experience. People want more angles. They want multi-view. They want to be able to chat. Like the platform has to be more than just a lean back experience now.
Yeah, they want to be. They don't necessarily want a completely personalized feed, but they want to be able to customize the experience and tap and touch more of it and feel like they're doing something with it, not just watching it.
Right, and then watch clips of the games that they didn't watch. You know, sort of, we'll have an integrated strategy like that. That's going to be pretty exciting.
That's great. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate the time. Is there any parting words for a streaming media audience that you want to leave us with?
Oh, I didn't really think about parting words. I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to be America's Next Top Model.
Yep. I think that's a perfectly valid place to leave it. And I'll be voting for you personally. So
that's perfect.
Thank you so much, Nicole, for the time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Andy. It's been great.